This video is an introduction to legislative history materials on Westlaw for the Intellectual Property Research course at Boston College Law School. One way to find federal legislative history information on Westlaw is through the History tab of an individual U.S. Code section. One useful place to start, if you're dealing with a code section that has been revised a lot, is the Editor's and Reviser's Notes, which begins with historical and statutory notes. I find it especially helpful to scroll down to the amendments, where we can see which changes were made in which years. For example, here we can see that the definition of motion picture exhibition facility was in the 2005 amendments, Section 102C of Public Law 1099. Linking to another page on this tab, Legislative History Materials, we can see that the documents referenced here are organized by the public laws that amended this section. Scrolling down to Public Law 1099, the law that added the definition of motion picture exhibition facility, we see links to a number of documents in the legislative history for this statute, including reports and congressional record entries. An especially useful thing to look for is a compiled legislative history. I've brought together the 6 compiled legislative histories that appear on this very lengthy Legislative History Materials tab. The first 5 are for GAO compiled legislative histories, which we'll be looking up in a minute. The 6th one is prepared by the law firm of Arnold & Porter on the 1976 Copyright Revision Act. Linking to the Arnold & Porter legislative history, the document it takes us to is the public law itself. But the really useful thing on this page, and every document in this database, is the link to a table of contents for this legislative history, which lists and links to the various documents in the legislative history arranged by Congress. You can also open this legislative history as a searchable database. A second way to look for legislative history materials on Westlaw is through the legislative history link on the main page. The link is towards the bottom of the page under the heading Specialty Areas. A Westlaw Global search does not search through these documents, so you need to select legislative histories to run a legislative history search. On the right side of the page, under the heading Tools and Resources, you can see a link to the legislative histories compiled by the law firm of Arnold & Porter. This is where you can find a link to the Arnold & Porter legislative history of the Copyright Revision Act of 1976 we have already linked to. To the left of that is a link to the GAO legislative histories. If you remember, there were links to 5 GAO legislative histories in the linked legislative histories materials at 17 U.S.C. 101. This database is a collection of legislative histories that were compiled by the Government Accountability Office from 1921 to 1995. The 2005 amendment is too recent to have a legislative history in this database, but Public Law 94-553, the 1976 Copyright Revision Act, is within the date range of this database. Given that this is a major piece of legislation, I think it is worth running a search in this database. It's very important to read and follow the instructions on Boolean searching in this database. To search for a legislative history in the Public Law number field, follow the instructions on the screen and type Public Law space +2 space, followed by the Public Law number. Our search gets 4 results, which are really 4 parts of this compiled legislative history. Let's look at the first part, where we see a list of links to PDF documents that are the content of this legislative history. When Westlaw searches this database, it searches the content of these underlying PDFs and marks in yellow those documents that contain our search terms. If I'd included additional search terms, there would have been more highlighted PDFs. The remaining legislative history database on Westlaw is the West publication United States Code, Congressional, and Administrative News, known as USCAN. You may remember from our discussion of statutes that USCAN is a print publication that preprints statutes at large and highlights of a legislative history, among other things. Before 1970, it was very difficult for anyone outside of Washington, D.C. to get their hands on any legislative history materials beyond what was in USCAN. You can search USCAN by document types, but remember that this is a selective legislative history and does not necessarily contain a particular document type for any legislative history. Again, you'll want to use an advanced search. Use the caption field to find all the documents relating to a particular public law. On this search results screen for caption 94-553, we notice that there are 2 reports, although only one of them appears on this overview screen. There's also a link to the public law itself. By searching the caption field, we get all of the documents in USCAN that relate to this public law. Contrast that with a search of the citation field. A search for 11229, the public law number of the America Invents Act in the citation field gets us documents that have the number 11229 in their citations. This search retrieves the America Invents Act, but it also gets the 29th House and Senate reports from the 112th Congress, neither of which is about the America Invents Act. So remember to search by caption to get all the documents related to your public law in a search by public law number.